Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today, official political campaigning in Israel has begun ahead of the fourth national elections, March 23, 2021. And already the TV ads turning heads with a range of approaches, from attack ads to campaign promises, and in Meretz's case, cats. Take a look.
יאיר לפיד הודע היום שיכניס את הרשימה המשותפת לממשלה שלו.
אתה יכול לשתף פעולה עם הרשימה המשותפת בהקמת ממשלה הבאה?
כן, בטח, איזה שאלה.
הנה עובדה שהשמאל מסתיר מכם. קרוב ל-70% מהציבור הוא ימני.
אנחנו הולכים עם ביבי, נקודה.
אני מיצי פלדמן כהן, מספר 69 במרץ, וראש מטה מרץ חתולים. אני מאוד שמח שאתם איתנו בחוג בית הזה.
So what moons are our politicians promising to deliver in exchange for our votes? Joining us to discuss is Director of International Relations with the Likud Party, Eli Chazan, and Senior Political and Security Analyst, formerly on the Israel Beitenu Party list, Reserve Colonel Olivier Rafowitz. Thank you both so much for being with us. Now, Eli, I'm going to actually start with you. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been putting out some very strong attack ads against Lapid, Bennett, and Sar lately, saying that a vote for any of them would end up in Lapid, in Lapid's favor, with Lapid controlling the next government. How big of a threat is Lapid to Netanyahu and, I suppose, by extension, Bennett and Sar?
It is not a threat only to us. It is a threat, at least ideologically and politically, to the state of Israel. And that's what we are trying to emphasize. That if you want to secure the future of the state, you must vote for Netanyahu. If you would vote to anyone else, then you will get the others, but not Netanyahu. Most likely that Lapid is going to be the leader. If you look, at the polls right now, Lapid is the biggest. As you could see, as the viewers could see in Hebrew, although in Hebrew, Lapid is going to count on the Arab Joint List. The majority of the Israelis are right-winger, and therefore we shall say the truth to the Israelis. Voting for anyone else except Likud would get Lapid with the support of the Arab Joint List.
Well, so first of all, I mean, it sounded like Lapid was saying that he'd be willing to entertain the idea of sitting with the Joint List, which in and of itself may not necessarily be a bad thing, but that's beside the point. Olivier, I want to bring you in on the conversation. What do you make of Netanyahu's, his challengers? Are they an existential threat to the state, as Eli Chazan would maybe suggest?
Of course not. I mean, Lapid, Bennett, Lieberman, Netanyahu, Sar, all of them are Jews, very strong Zionists, and they love Israel. Now, the issue here is not threat or not threat. The issue is that people in Israel are fed up of one-man show Netanyahu leaders for so many years, and they want change. It's not simple, right? Because Bibi Netanyahu is a very strong leader for a very long time. He has a very strong party, Likud, very strong mechanism behind him. He knows very well how to talk to the people. He knows very well how to deal with foreign issues. He's a very good and very serious statesman. But in spite of that, or with that, Israeli people from the other side want, like our friend just mentioned, a right-wing leader or someone very close to the right wing, but someone else. And someone else is just existing. But the point is now not between right and left, or between existential threat and not existential threat. The point is that people want someone else, and someone else can be within the Likud, within Tikva Hadasha, New Hope.
But Olivier, let me press you on that, because that really has been the biggest argument against the parties in opposition to Netanyahu, that their campaign promises, or rather that their campaign platform largely has been just not Netanyahu. Do you really think that that's going to cut it after 3 elections where it didn't?
Listen, what I can tell you that people want change, and change will come. It will come, because at some point you cannot just keep in power forever. You are not a king, and you are not a dictator. You are elected. So if the election are, according to what I think, this time there will be a change. The only problem for now in this change, that there is one big leader, Netanyahu, and from the other side, you have some leaders that are divided between different parties but not one big one like Bibi. But this time, I believe that a coalition will be built, maybe with Gideon Sa'ar at the head, maybe with Yair Lapid, but the mass of the people who won't change will make the difference this time, and there will be a coalition.
All right, Eli,
It's very funny. Yeah, it's very funny. If you allow me, I would like to reply.
Yeah, go ahead.
Helmut Kohl has been the prime minister, the chancellor of Germany for more than 16 years. He was elected by the people. Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister of Britain nearly 11 and a half years. She was elected by the people. And I want to give you the last example, the most actual one. Angela Merkel, the chancellor of Germany, was elected in 2005 because that was the will of the people. We are going into the election. As you know, Likud is the biggest party. Netanyahu is the most popular prime minister, and therefore, Olivier, saying that is not really accurate.
So, Eli, let's continue on that train of thought. So far, you mentioned earlier. Yeah, Olivier.
Sorry, may I add one? Netanyahu is the biggest party with the Likud, but he was not elected by the majority of the Israeli people. It's a fact. It's a political fact.
The fact that he established a government, and it's a fact that Israel is a democracy, and he's got the vote, the confidence of 74 MKs. That is a fact.
One moment, please. If you want to, because you just compared with Angela Merkel or with Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was really elected by the majority of the British people in UK. It's not the case with Mr. Netanyahu. Netanyahu actually, as a matter of fact, and that's the main problem, in order to be prime minister or to continue to be prime minister, he is obliged to make coalition with Orthodox parties. Now he's even looking for some Arab Muslim groups within the Arab society, which is very strange for a Jabotinsky, Cherut.
It's not strange at all.
But because he wants to stay and to remain in power, he is ready to make all what he can do in order to keep his position as a leader. That's the big problem for Netanyahu today.
Well, Olivier, that really actually speaks to my question. If I may interject, Eli, I'd like to ask you more directly. Eli, I'd like to ask you more directly, because earlier you mentioned the joint list sitting with Lapid in a potential government. And now, Olivier, you're also again bringing up the fact of the coalition building as a necessity to create a functional government. So, Eli, back to you. Who are Netanyahu's natural allies? Because, as Olivier pointed out, Moshe Gafni, UTJ, Shas, these religious parties have already said that they will partner with you. But that's about it. Where else are you going to get the seats?
No, we have the religious Zionism, and Bennett is an option.
Correct. I'm sorry.
The most important thing is to get 61.
Ben Gvir also is an option, right?
Sorry?
Ben Gvir is an option also for you.
Of course it is an option. When you have the supporters of terrorism, which your leader of your party is supporting them, of course Ben Gvir is an option. But as I want to emphasize, Ben Gvir is an option as a surplus agreement, not more than that. We made it clear again and again and again. Ben Gvir is not going to sit on the government. This is a political move. And of course, people like me support it, although we do not share the same views with Ben Gvir. I want to say more than that. You mentioned the Arabs, and I want to remind to the viewers, we said again and again and again, we have nothing against the Arab citizens of Israel. We have a lot against the Arab joint list. More than that, from 2015 to 2019, Netanyahu's government invested billions of shekels on the Arab citizens of Israel. More than that, we made it clear again and again and again. The Islamic Party Ram, led by Mansour Abbas, is not going to be part of our government. And that's the difference. Wait a second, Olivier. That's the difference between people like me and you. I've never said anything against the Arab citizens of Israel. I want to remind you that Yvette Lieberman, that was his campaign in 2009. About their right to vote. That is the difference. We will, wait a second, let me just conclude. We will do everything human possible in order to integrate the Arab citizens of the State of Israel, and we will do everything human possible in order to fight and to combat the supporters of terrorism of the Arab joint list.
May I answer?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Listen, I know that it's a very serious program, so I'm not going to laugh, but I mean, it's very funny. Because the guy who is now talking to us is a Likud member, and he's just now running after the Arab vote because he knows very well that among the majority of the Israeli people, Israeli Jewish people, he has no majority. So now he's looking for non-Zionist groups like the Shas and the Yadut Torah. And in the Arab world, now between you and me, sir, Arab people...
Okay, but why do you ignore the facts? I mean, why do you have the tendency to ignore the facts?
I
mean, you move to the left wing, okay, it's legit. But why do you ignore the facts like the left wingers in Israel?
Olivier?
I give you time to react, so please give me time to react. What I'm telling you now, we are not against any citizen in Israel if he behave according to the rules and according to the laws. Like you, we are against terror and violence, but we are also against, not like you, anti-Zionist groups. And when you make coalition with people who don't give a shit of Israel, they don't like Israel, they don't want to serve in the army, and you are going to give them millions of dollars because you want them in your coalition, you make a big mistake for the future of Israel. You put Israel in very big danger. That's why today many Israelis are very, very unhappy about Mr. Netanyahu, because in order to keep in power, he's ready to make a deal with the devil. And the devil is not Zionist, he's not Jewish either, and it's a big danger. And you know that. You know it very well.
I know one thing, and it's very interesting because your party leader sit with the same governments that we used to sit, Netanyahu and the ultra-religious. Your party leader was one of the key figure leaders who brought Moshe Leon to be the mayor of Jerusalem with the cooperation of the ultra-religious. More than that, under Netanyahu's administration since 2009, more and more ultra-religious, more and more ultra-religious are going to the army. More and more ultra-religious is integrating into the economy. You ignore those facts. I mean, I agree that this is your right to join to the left wing, but please don't adopt the false discourse.
Olivier, a quick response.
You talk about the left. I mean, are you serious? You are going now to look for the Arab votes. They are right-wing, they are Zionist, they are Jabotinsky line.
Olivier, I mean, I think that there's something that Eli pointed to. Olivier, I think that there's something that Eli alluded to earlier, which I think that is a very fair statement to make, that, the joint list is not necessarily representative of all the Arab Israeli public.
Exactly. And don't forget another thing, they are so disappointed with the Arab joint list.
Listen,
Netanyahu is the prime minister of all the citizens of the state of Israel. If they want to be integrated into the society, of course we will accept it, like Jabotinsky.
Mr. Khazan, I know that you become suddenly very pro-Arab in Israel. It's your right. Maybe Likud, because maybe Likud tomorrow will join the joint list of the Arab society. I don't know. But what I know, it is that few days ago, you sent someone from your party to Ramallah to speak with the Palestinian Authority in order to get their support for your party. And this time you are just crossing all the lines, and you know it. Now, it's your right. It's your right to decide that you want to keep in power at any price, but you make a terrible mistake because you are going to put into danger the Zionist and Jewish light of the state of Israel. That's your problem.
It's so funny. Do you see Abu Mazen being supportive of Likud? Do you see the Palestinians being supportive of Likud? On the contrary, Olivier, on the contrary, they are very supportive to your political campaign, the left wing, because they know that they will get nothing from Netanyahu.
Why did you send a Druze member of your party to speak with them secretly? Tell me.
It's not secretly. I'll explain.
Explain.
Do you know what is the position of this Druze MK from Likud?
I'm asking you.
I will tell you. He's the Deputy Minister of Regional Cooperation Ministry. And in part of this job, he's moving there in order to be worried about the vaccines and things like that. Of course, you can say whatever you want, but you are in trouble. Olivier, you are in trouble. All your efforts, all the trials, all the allegations, all the false allegations against Netanyahu, 3 chiefs of staff, and he's still the most popular one. It means that you have a problem.
That's the right.
So Olivier, I actually do want to flip this question a little bit back on you. You know, you mentioned that the Likud would be making a big mistake to be courting the Arab public or the Arab parties at the very least. But again, looking at the polls that are coming out recently, the opposition parties, including Israel Beitenu now, also don't really have a clear path to 61 without going maybe outside their natural allies. Who do you see forming that coalition?
The main difference between Mr. Netanyahu and his people and us, we are not ready to any compromise in order to get power. We are what we are.
I would like to refer.
From their side, they're ready now to speak with the Arab in Ramallah. They're ready to speak with the Arab list from the Muslim group within the Arab list because he left the Arab list. They're ready to go wherever it's possible to go in order to get the 61 votes. It is their right, but it's not right wing. It's not Likud anymore. It's not Herut. It's not Begin. It's Bibism. Now Bibism, I don't know. It's maybe a new party. Maybe you're a member of a new party. Maybe you like it. We don't like it because we are a democracy and we believe that at the end of the day, parties have the obligation to tell their people, the public, who they are really, and not to sell the votes for just to keep in power.
All right, Eli?
No, it's so interesting. I'll tell you why. Because if you remember, after the last election in March 2020, it used to be one party who used to speak against the Arabs all the time, but they have voted in support of two MKs from the Arab Joint List to be the head of the committees and the Knesset. We never did it. I mean, we say all the time, we are looking for cooperation with the Arab community in Israel, but the Arab MKs, as long as they are not Zionists, they will not take part in the government. More than that, wait a second, Olivier. More than that, Olivier, you're trying, Olivier, my dear, you're trying to speak on behalf of the name of Begin. But Begin was the one who fought against the military. Yeah. I just want to make it clear because it's so funny that someone from Israel Beitenu is trying to speak on behalf of Menachem Begin. But Menachem Begin was one who fought against the military regime, if you remember, or the military administration on the Arab citizens of Israel from 1949 to 1966. Menachem Begin and Zev Jabotinsky make it obligatory to bring the Arab population into the Arab society. So in that case, Netanyahu, in a very way, is a successor of Menachem Begin. And you're trying to bring the Israel Beitenu discourse, the racist one, into this table, and it doesn't work like that.
You talk about racism, so I want to tell you exactly what you are talking about. You are going now to make a coalition with someone who is from Kana movement?
Of course.
Yes, Ben here.
If you get support from the Arab Joint List, for political reasons.
You want this Arab citizen
Eli,
to be...
to be fair, sitting with one extremist on one side doesn't negate sitting with an extremist on another.
No, I'll tell you why. Thank you for the question. It's a very interesting question. I'll tell you why.
Can we let Olivier finish his point, actually? I'd like to hear the rest of his point.
Yeah, thank you.
Why. And thank you for this question, and it's very important to make it clear. By the way, I had an interview to CNN who explained that. As I told you, I share nothing in common. I share nothing in common with Ben Gvir except the will to defeat the left wing in Israel.
Olivier?
Now, I'm so sorry to say, but it doesn't work like that when the left wing will be supported by the Arab Joint List with the big numbers of the Arab Joint List while we have small seats to count on. This is politics, and more than that. When you look, for instance, on Sebastian Kurz, the Chancellor of Austria, in 2017, in order to create a coalition, he aligned himself with the FPO. And that's politics.
Olivier?
Yeah, listen, because, I was starting to answer, but he interrupted me, but it's okay. Listen, Likud people and Likud party is in panic. Netanyahu is in panic now because he knows that he's losing majority for the coalition. Now he's going now to try to find anyway, all the ways, anybody to be rich in order to be in the coalition. So it will be the Arabs, if some of them leave the joint list. It will be, of course, Ben Gvir people who are against homosexual, against lesbian. I mean, people were like the blackness of Judaism. It's not Israel that we like. It is another Israel that we don't like. But even Netanyahu himself is not like that. But because he wants to keep in power, at any price, they will join. Even Mr. Chazan doesn't like Ben Gvir, but he's obliged to say yes because it is the message that he's going to declaim from the party, because he has no possibility to say that he is against it. Now, from our side, I will tell you something, Mr. Chazan.
All right, so
You have to be very.
So I'd like to actually change the topic a little bit now. Something that a person we haven't actually really spoken about in a long time is Blue and White Chairman Benny Gantz, formerly alternate prime minister and current acting defense minister. Has his time essentially ended? Because the Blue and White Party in all the polls is barely covering the electoral threshold. Do either of you really see any future for the Blue and White Party? Eli, I'll start with you.
I think that Benny Gantz, if he's a clever man and a very good Zionist, has to leave politics and to get back to where he's coming from, to his moshav, and to leave the others to make politics. At this point, I think that he had a big party, he had a big chance, but he made a big mistake by joining Netanyahu coalition. He lost all this credibility in Israel, and I think that he should just leave.
So did you sign the petition from IDF officers, former IDF officers, to oust him from politics or to call on him to resign?
I was not asked to sign, but in the case that I was asked to sign, I would have signed it, yes.
Eli?
I know one thing in politics, never say never. You know how many times I've heard that Netanyahu ended his term, he is finished, this is the end of his political career. Israel is a democracy, and people have a lot of ways to express their opinions. I would not count on it, but in the left wing, they like to dream about things that it's unrealistic, but who knows? Let's wait till March 24th.
All right.
What is funny?
All right.
What is
Unfortunately, that is where I have to end it. That's all the time that we have today. But again, thank you so much, Colonel Olivier Rafovitz and Eli Chazan, for joining us. And everybody watching, please tune in next time on Insider for more in-depth analysis on everything Israel. Also, if there's a topic that you want us to cover next, please let us know about it in the comment sections online. And remember that for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channels. I'm Aaron Porras. Stay healthy. Thank you so much for watching.